Elements of community engagement and relationship building. Then she rose through the ranks until she became serving as the deputy chief before retiring in June of 2016 to accept her current position here at the city of Durham. She's a graduate of the 225th session of the National FBI Academy. She also has experience training opportunities abroad, including the Emergency Preparedness College in York, England in 2005. She currently serves as the first vice president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives and was recently appointed to the board of directors of the International Association of Chiefs of Police, where she serves on the Trust Initiative Committee. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Criminal Justice and a Master's in Public Administration. And on behalf of myself, I'm Kurt Young, the President of Carolina Arbors. Please welcome Chief C.J. Davis.
Thank you. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to come out here to see how people live so nicely in the air conditioned and the pool outside, and the inside pool and the bar downstairs. I just come over here and dream sometimes. How's everybody tonight? Good, good. It's always good to come out here. It's a pleasure to be here. Believe it or not, I have been in Durham as of June. It'll be 3 years. That time went by fast, didn't it? I think I have 5 new gray hairs for every year. I'm sure of it. Of course, Miss Clairol takes care of that for me. But before I get started, what I wanted to do is really introduce some of my folks, the people who really keep the wheels moving in the Durham Police Department. I can't do nothing without the support of my staff. So this is going to be a leadership challenge for them because they didn't know that they were going to be speaking tonight. And I want them to introduce themselves, and I also want them to tell you where they are from and what brings them to the city of Durham. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Zepekis. I'm the new captain of District 1. I've actually been here for about 4 months now, and I've worked District 1 on previous occasions in different capacities. I'm originally from Long Island, New York, so I know we got a few. There we are. There we are. It's a lot warmer down here, isn't it? So I came down here in 1996 to pursue a master's degree, and met 2 people that kind of influenced my life, a Navy commander who's getting his master's degree and a major at the Raleigh Police Department. Each one of them tried to get me into their respective organizations. So I went to Naval OCS, did that for 2 months, hurt my knee, but also realized that flying upside down in an aircraft makes me nauseous. So after that was done, I came back and got into the police department, and I've now finished 22 years in law enforcement. I'm very proud of that career.
Aren't they sharp?
Good evening. My name is Henry Burwell. I am actually the lieutenant for the district. You just heard my captain speak. I also share definitely something with him as well. I'm also from New York. Queens to be exact, Queens, New York. And what brought me to North Carolina, well, if you would believe it or not, I actually used to run track. I was on scholarship at North Carolina Central University. So that's what actually brought me to Durham, North Carolina. I decided to pursue a career in law enforcement after majoring in criminal justice and having a lot of friends, building relationships with a lot of friends that became Durham police officers that graduated also from North Carolina Central. And it's just a pleasure to be here and to serve this community. I am a District 1 baby, as what I call it. I've been with the police department for a total of 22 years, and I started my career off in District 1. Carolina Arbors wasn't around during that time, but I did have the pleasure of serving as a corporal, as a sergeant, now as a lieutenant. So it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good evening. I'm Mark Moray. I'm the Assistant Commander Lieutenant of the Community Services Division. I've been with the department for 16 years and originally from the Washington, D.C. area. I came down here to escape the traffic. Was in a previous job, was transferred down to this area, left that career and joined the police department and been serving in various capacities with community services since then. We have come out several times with Officer Shepard to do programs at Carolina Arbors and really appreciate the welcome that you've accepted us into your communities. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Good evening, Carolina Arbors. Glad to be back out with you today. I'm Kimberly Walker, for those of you who do not know me, and I have been with the City of Durham since 1996, the Durham Police Department since 2005. I'll be very transparent and say that I'm here because my husband, my newlywed husband at the time, drugged me up 85 North, kicking and screaming. Because anyone who was here in Durham back in the late 80s knew it was not the place that it is today. But I've been very excited to be a part of that renaissance and glad to be here with you tonight. I am in the office of the Chief of the Police in the Public Affairs Unit.
Good evening. I'm almost afraid to speak so many New Yorkers. I'm from North Carolina. My name is Sherry Montgomery, and I'm the Major of the Administrative Services Bureau, newly promoted, so I just started last week. That's right. Thank you, Chief. I've been here 20 years. I have a bachelor's in accounting and an MBA, so I'm more of the budget, maybe getting into that a little bit more, but it's a pleasure to be here to meet you all.
So I'm Melissa Bishop. I'm the Chief's Executive Officer. I started in 1997, and I'm from Detroit, Michigan. So I came down here because my parents moved down here, and I graduated from NC State, and then I got my and now working in the office of the chief. I kind of shadow the chief and learn what she's doing and get all my tips from her.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Officer Shepard, Durham Police Department. I am on the Community Resource Unit. I am your Community Resource Officer for District 1. I've been an officer for about 12 years now. I've been out here several times giving safety presentations, so some of you guys may know me, and I see a lot of familiar faces in here. Again, I've been a police officer 12 years. Being a police officer has always been a dream of mine. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. However, I have been here since I was 5 years old. I've been here since 5. So I don't really claim Brooklyn, but I do absolutely 100% claim Durham. Love being an officer here in Durham, love my city. So I'm just fortunate to have the opportunity to serve in my city. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I always have to give them stage time because I am because they are. And I really support all the work that they do every day. I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Does that give me any kind of, any Army folks here? 82nd Airborne? Yeah, I was, okay, all right. So let's get down to business here. Let's talk a little bit about the Durham Police Department and some work that we've been doing over the last 12 months or so. So first of all, I want to thank Mr. Young. Thank you so much for always opening the doors to Carolina Arbors for us to be here and be able to share information about what we're doing in the Durham Police Department and how we strive to provide excellent service delivery for our citizens. And that can be challenging at times, but that we are always going to strive for that. So some of the questions and topics we're going to talk about are topics that your Neighborhood Watch Executive Committee recommended. And these topics include staffing and recruiting, crime trends, growth and restructuring of our department, the budget outlook. I added to the list the new police headquarters, something that I wanted to talk a little bit about because it's our new gym. Our facility, as there continues to be much community interest in that project. So, you may have noticed that the new headquarters exterior was featured on the title slide of today's presentation. This slide features scenes from the community grand opening that we had in last fall. I feel it's important to note also that on that dreary day, it was a dreary Saturday in October 2018, the Durham community showed up for our grand opening in large numbers to celebrate with us a state-of-the-art facility. Police-community relationships continue to be strong in Durham, and we're going to continue to build on them. We engaged approximately 600 guests that day at the main community event with tours throughout the building, games for our youth, crafts, safety booths, and much, much more, not to mention the fact that we have food. Food always brings people out, rain, sleet, snow, or shine. One thing I was thinking about, I said, well, I'm gonna go eat dinner tonight, because they always have food in Carolina Arbors. Not tonight, right? But that's okay, there'll be another meal that I'm sure you'll invite me out to. So, let's talk a little bit more about the new headquarters. The facility is Durham's first ever purpose-built police headquarters. The new headquarters address is 602 East Main Street. The facility measures 125,000 square feet and sits on 4.5 acres. It sits on the former site of Carpenter Chevrolet Motor Company. That company was there from 1923 to 2016. The Durham Police Department occupied the building at 505 West Chapel Hill Street from 1991 to 2018. That building was former Home Life Insurance Company building. So 52,919 more square feet than our old building. We were absolutely growing out of our building, and our building was coming loose at the seams, literally. So we didn't need to stay there a day longer than we did. 250 more parking spaces with a designated visitors parking lot. Approximately 400 police department and 911 employees work in the new police headquarters. 298 of those are police staff and 82 are emergency communications 911 employees. About 370 Durham Police Department employees work in the district substations that are not, working outside of that particular building. So we have our other staff that are based out of other facilities throughout the city. Some of the features in our new building, some of the amenities, of course, improved parking areas for citizens and our employees, diverse bathroom options. I bet you're saying, what is that all about? Energy efficient electrical, mechanical, and plumbing systems. It is a smart building. Elevators that work. How about that? Elevators that work. Thank you. And then a facility that has a state-of-the-art training and fitness center that is getting good use. And a couple of those rooms we have started with new yoga classes for our officers and employees. Zumba, pound classes, and also we have opportunities for our employees to get personal trainers as well. I personally enjoy yoga and encourage my officers too, because it's a great opportunity for officers. The type of work that we do every day, it's a good de-stressor, helps officers to decompress a little bit. So our 911 Emergency Communications Center, Durham Emergency Communications Center is located in police headquarters. It's on the 4th floor. Important to note that the 911 center is not run by the police department. It serves the county and the city, but it has its own separate director. 911 Emergency Communications is funded by both the city and the county. So one thing I can brag on for our director, Randy Beeman, who in his absence, is that our center is one of only 3 911 centers in the world to hold 3 accreditations simultaneously. Accreditation of law enforcement agencies, emergency medical dispatch accreditation by the National Academy of Emergency Medical Dispatch, and the international recognized APCO Project 33 certification from the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials International. I know I said a lot, but it takes a lot of work to be accredited times 3, and that's a good thing for the citizens of Durham. And also proud to know that our communications center is so aptly prepared to serve the citizens of Durham with excellent responsiveness to the Durham Police Department as well. Moving on to the next slide. Our staffing levels, something that some of you were interested in. In the current fiscal year, the department is authorized to fill 547 police officer positions and 123 non-sworn support staff positions. 95% of sworn positions was occupied in December 2018. I'm pleased to say that as of today, we have 98% of our positions filled in the city of Durham. Non-sworn staffing level at the end of 2018 was at 91%, and today it is 99%. We are almost 100% staffed for the Durham Police Department. Yeah, y'all would clap about that. That's important. Thank you. So, moving on. Before I move any further, does anybody have any questions about anything? I thought it'd be a good opportunity so that, you know, as we go through, if there are any slides that you have a question about, you can raise your hand, I'll be glad to answer it. I see one in the back there. You got a loud voice? Were you a cheerleader before? Okay. We got a microphone right there.
I just have a quick question about the 911 call.
Yes.
Because apparently there was an emergency situation here a couple of weeks ago, and somebody called 911, and it took a little bit longer because we're on the Raleigh-Durham borderline, and Raleigh got dispatched, and then it took a while for them to dispatch it to Durham. Should we be saying we're District 1, or what should we say when we call 911?
Actually, you should be saying District 1, and that's something that the 911 Communication Center needs to work out. And it's not just in this area. A lot of times, areas where there are homes or residents on borderlines, sometimes they may go to another county in era, but that's something, I don't know if anyone actually made an inquiry with the 911 Communication Center, but I'd be glad to do that so that we don't have to take away one of those wonderful accreditations that they have. But yeah, that's something that we'll try to work out. I'll actually talk to Randy. He and I have a really good relationship, and talk to him about that. Anybody else have a question about anything? Yes, ma'am. Yes, in District 1, you absolutely are. Yes. All right, anybody else? Anybody else? Any questions? Okay. All right, back to staffing a little bit here. So, February 2nd, Academy 48 graduated, 23 graduates, new officers on the street. Academy number 49, graduation is a date schedule is August 2019. And that class will have 27 recruits that will graduate and be headed out onto the street. So in that class 48, the basic law enforcement class that recently graduated, the demographics, this was the most recent class. There were 20 males, 3 females, ages ranged from 20 to 37 years old. 7 were North Carolinians. There were 2 Durham residents, and related to former or current law enforcement officers, this was an interesting number. 10 people out of that class were related to law enforcement folks, which is good, keeping it in the family. Pleased to see that our recruiting strategies are working. We are endeavoring to move around the country and find young people who are criminal justice majors, political science majors, sociology majors, and so on. A lot of military bases we visit. As folks are getting out of the military, this is a nice transition for them to seek careers in law enforcement as well. So moving right along here to our crime trends, something a little bit more interesting for everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 2018 crime trends were. Index crimes. Index crimes are part 1 offenses. Those are your more serious crimes. And there are 8 crimes that are in this FBI category. So these offenses include willful homicide, forcible rape, robbery, burglary, aggravated assault, larceny over $50, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Those are part 1 crimes. In Durham in 2018, Part 1 index crime decreased by 7% compared to 2017. There were decreases in robberies, aggravated assaults, burglaries, and larcenies. Part 1 violent crime was down 13%, and Part 1 property crime decreased 6%. So we had a good year of decreases in crime. But one thing for sure though is when you have good years like that, it's hard to get better numbers. You're always trying to get better numbers. So this is a bit more of a breakdown as it relates to those different crime categories. Double-digit decreases in reported robberies and aggravated assault. Robberies were at a 4-year low, aggravated assaults at a 5-year low. And as you can see, the 3-year average, and we always like to look at a 3-year average and sometimes a 5-year average so that we're not just comparing 1 year to the next year. We want to see how we're doing over a period of time. Are we moving in the right direction over a period of time as opposed to just looking at 1 year to the next? Okay, next one. And so our property crimes, burglary, larceny, and motor vehicle theft, decreases in burglary and larceny. Burglaries were at a 20-year low. I really don't know what to attribute that to, but they were at a 20-year low. We can take some credit for more visibility, having officers would take home vehicles, and just, having that presence in communities and things, but always glad to see that people are living comfortably in their homes without worrying about break-ins. Before I move any further, does anybody have any questions about crime trends? Yes, ma'am.
I just have one comment, it's not really a question, but it would be interesting to see the growth in population under those years as well, to give you some perspective, not just the numbers of events.
Believe me, I have a boatload of data, but, and it is interesting because we do pay attention when I'm asking for budget requests. I don't just take the crime numbers under consideration, I take the calls for service. Do we have increases in calls for service and population growth? One thing that is very interesting about the city of Durham is that according to the FBI and our UCR reporting numbers, we have moved as a city into a higher category because we have passed the 250,000 population mark. So it takes us into a whole nother sort of mid-sized city category. Thank you for that. That is important data. So in 2018, the Durham Police Department was above the FBI average for clearing cases in similar sized cities in 8 of 9 crime categories. That's a good thing. That means even though a crime was committed, the Durham Police Department investigators were very successful in apprehending those individuals who commit those crimes. So the FBI 2017 numbers, the reason why we compared 17 numbers is because their 2018 clearance numbers weren't available yet. So these were the averages for 2017. What we like to do is be higher than the FBI averages and higher than the other cities our size. The only exception was the category of aggravated assault. And the way aggravated assaults are counted is they're not counted as one incident. If someone came in here and began to use a weapon in this room, as many people are in this room, it would be counted as a different aggravated assault. If you were within the scope of being harmed by that action, everyone here would be counted as an aggravated assault case. So that's interesting because sometimes we have drive-by shootings at a house. If you 10 people in a house, it's 10 different crimes. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. So this is a slide a little bit about your community. And in your community, you all obviously do a pretty good job as far as neighborhood watches and trying to keep your community safe and working with the police department. As you can see, 2018 incidents in Carolina Arbors, it's broken down, burglaries, 2. The burglary forcible entry was 1. Burglary non-forced entry was 1. Calls for service with no crime was 1. 2 death investigations. Fraud was 2. That was like scams or something like that, the games and trickery. Fraud, credit card fraud, there were 2 cases. Fraud impersonation was 1, intimidation was 1, larceny and all other were 3. Larceny from motor vehicles was 4. Motor vehicle theft was 1. And total abandoned vehicle was 1, with a total of 23 incidents. For a community this size, that's not bad, nothing really serious. Does anybody have any questions about incidents in this particular community? Yes, ma'am.
So what was the simple assault that was in the first part of this year?
Well, and I may not know the specific, do you have the specific simple assault that was here?
So I don't, and folks, a simple assault is even a domestic where someone, it's not most of those times, and I'm gonna
It's
tell
like
you.
if somebody threatens you or,
Those are very minor, it's
Yeah.
not aggravated, it's a very, and sometimes it could be an argument among spouses or friends, and then
Right.
somebody
Or
pushes someone,
push,
that's a simple
yeah.
assault.
it sounds real serious, but most of the time it's not. Okay, any other questions about trends in Carolina Arbors? Yes, sir.
Well, this might be the previous slide, but do you find like video doorbells and webcams and smart homes are effective in keeping?
I absolutely do, and I know when people purchase those types of technologies, they're for, the individual homeowner, but you would be surprised how many times your Ring service has helped to solve a crime in another area of the community, or we were able to retrieve someone's video that didn't relate to their particular address, but your video captured a vehicle description, maybe even a tag, or something that was going on at a house across the street from you. So we absolutely feel that video surveillance and various types of cameras are very helpful. I have one at my house only because of the fact that sometimes they act as a deterrent too. Might not want to come to my house if you don't want to be on camera. So they do. They act as a deterrent too. People are selective when when there's crimes of opportunity. Any other questions about crime trends? Yes, sir.
What exactly is intimidation?
Excuse me?
What exactly is intimidation?
Is intimidation? It could be like a subtle threat. Don't come in my yard anymore. I'm going to have something. I'm going to get you. It could be. It doesn't have to be anything that's super aggressive or egregious. You guys do charges on intimidation. You want to give an example of what you would consider an intimidation type of situation? Have had that many?
Yeah, it's just communicating a threat.
Yeah.
So that's it. Hi, thank you. I got the New York voice, but this helps. So communicating a threat is a lot of times you'll have, neighbors will have a dispute over something and somebody will say, get off my property or I'll do so and so. And then they go out there and they take a warrant out for someone's arrest. Or sometimes they'll just report it to 911. It doesn't even go to that level. But when we say intimidation, it's communicating a threat. It's a very common charge. And it's just people, who are sitting there making threats toward each other. Unfortunately, and I'll tell you, these numbers here, I mean, this is incredibly low for a community, especially a community of this size.
Yes, question in the back.
If a crime is committed at a house that does have a Ring doorbell, and you have a perfectly clear picture of the perpetrator, you strictly depend on recognizing this person, and if nobody recognizes, and the police department recognizes the person, where do you go from there?
Well, the Ring doorbell is sort of like body-worn cameras. Everybody thinks that, body-worn cameras can fix everything. It's a panacea for incidents. It's not, it's just one tool. And what that does is the picture, along with other information that we might have about that particular incident, whether it's this description, because sometimes you can, quite frankly, can't see the person's face, even on a Ring door camera. But you might have what that person had on. He was wearing a Nike hat. He also had on black boots, white pants. And if that description is given to you from another neighbor or someone, and you have that video footage, and you have other information, it helps to put that picture together and help us to zero in on whoever it is. So the video footage and the Ring doorbell or whatever kind of system that you have, that's only one piece of the puzzle to help us to solve crimes. Hope that answered. Yes, sir.
Is there, there's only two ways to get into property. Is there been any thoughts about installing cameras in both the,
3 ways.
Oh, 3 ways to get in. That would be a decision that, the community would have to make as it relates to cameras. As far as the police department, we have not taken on that level of responsibility because those kind of decisions really have to be supported by your city administration, your city elected officials, but private entities, private residents, you can do what you want to on your own property. So, something for you to think about. Any other questions? Okay. We're gonna move on, talk a little bit about growth and restructuring in the police department. And with this comes a little bit of history. April 2019, it marked the 150th birthday of the city of Durham and the beginning of law enforcement services in the city of Durham. In 1869 to 1879, Durham's Board of Aldermen appointed a constable to so-called keep the peace. One guy. By 1930, the Durham Police Department, a police force of 43 male officers, and then 1944, the first black officers were hired. 1972, first female officers hired. Everything got better then. Just kidding, guys. That was 47 years ago. In 2016, when I was hired as Durham's second female police chief and the first African-American female, the department's authorized workforce was 637 employees, 512 officers, and 125 non-sworn staff. Today, fiscal year 2018 and 19, there are 670 authorized positions and 547 officer slots. During my 3-year tenure, staffing has increased by 35 police officer positions, And if you ask me, not near enough. In 3 years, the Durham Police Department's general fund budget has grown a little over 10 million from 54, are these numbers right for the police department? Okay, yeah, our budget has grown from 54 million to 64 million, about $10 million. But the city's grown, the department's grown, we need equipment, we want to be a state-of-the-art agency. This is a Mayberry in Durham anymore. You all see the growth all around you. 2 years ago, that Harris Teeter wasn't there up the street, because I remember, that was a dirt lot. And so now you got all kinds of wonderful businesses around here, but every time, you see some new development come up, new apartments, it means more calls for service. It means more responsibility from your first responders to be able to take care of your citizens. Durham's growing population and increasing diversity, as well as technology advancement, necessitate correlating changes in Durham Police Department staffing and in its funding. So, a little bit of reorganization in the police department in the last 3 years. 2016, we had an IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police study. That's the board that I currently sit on as well. They came in and did a study even before I came to Durham on how many officers should the Durham Police Department have and how should the department be organized. So we've made changes, and some of them were based on their recommendations, and some of them were based on just our overall evaluation of the department and assessing what we needed for this city. Some of the changes included the addition of a new robbery unit. In 2016, the city was being torn to pieces by various little robbery, gangs and, crews, that's what we want to call them, various crews. And it was nothing to have 4 or 5 robberies in a day. And it kept our officers busy. We started a task force, and that task force was really, matter of fact, Lieutenant Burwell here was a sergeant at the time. He helped lead up that, that's why he's a lieutenant now, because he did so good. But he did a great job as far as helping to crack down on some of those robbery cases and putting folks in jail. Special Projects and Logistics, Special Services Division, formerly was District 5. We still have that District 5 space, but we also have staff that work out of that particular unit that are operational, like our motors and our bicycle units and so on. Our Community Engagement Unit, it services the public housing communities. Cornwallis has a community engagement unit of about 10 officers, and crime has gone down about 60% in that community since those officers have been boots on the ground over there. Hispanic Liaison Officer. We continuously have issues in our Hispanic community with immigration issues. Some of our Hispanic community members are easily targeted as crime victims because other individuals that target them know that they may not call the police and report the crime. And our feeling is that if the crime is being committed in the Hispanic community, those guys are committing crimes in other parts of the city. So what we've had to do in order to make sure that we gather intelligence is have an individual that is bilingual, that can speak to the Hispanic community and get information to help us resolve crime issues. LGBTQ liaison officer, and we added a 3rd deputy chief to our command structure so that we would have a deputy chief, which is the level right up under mine, a deputy chief over criminal investigations division, 1 over patrol services, and 1 over administrative services. Those are 3 main functions of most police departments, and it was important to have leadership over each one of those areas. The IACP study also recommended that we conduct a beat realignment and looking at the beats around the city. One reason that our officers were having a hard time responding to calls for service within the amount of time that was our set goal is because of the geographical space of the city. Some beats were just huge and hard to navigate. Some corridors in the city, if you're driving around 5 o'clock down Roxborough, you can forget it if you're trying to get to Trayburn or some area on the north side because you don't have freeways that go up, to those locations. So officers have a difficult time trying to navigate from one part of the city to the next. So what we did is took a really close look at our beats and conducted some adjustment so that we could have officers in places so that they could get to calls for service at a reasonable time. Our current goal is for our officers to respond in 5.8 minutes. That has been a struggle over the last couple of years. It would range from 6.1 to 6.3. I'm pleased to say that as of this quarter, this is the first time in many years that our officers are responding to calls for service under that 5.8 minutes. And they don't even know it. You all the first ones that I'm telling. So, thank you. Next week, I will be doing I will be presenting before council, and that will be my quarterly crime report. And in that quarterly crime report, we will be revealing some of that information as well. So until this year, the Durham Police Department's beat structure was relatively unchanged. Since District 5, the downtown district, was created in February 2001. 2004, beats 324 and 415 were added. In 2008, beats 125 and 314 were added. And in 2015, District 3 beats were realigned. There were no improvement in response time during those years. The 2019 beat realignment served to minimize workload variation between patrol beats, target 5,000 to 5,500 events per beat, minimize response time for officers responding to calls for service, maintain district boundaries with minor exceptions, and fortify beat integrity and community policing efforts. And in a nutshell, what we want to do is we want to make sure that the officers that are assigned to a beat, that's your beat. And that even on a busy day, we don't have to have that officer leave that beat and go and service some other community. What that does is it gives that officer an opportunity to get to know the community, understand the precarious things that occur in that community, and be very familiar with the people in the community, businesses in the community, and the community can be familiar with their beat officer. So that's what some of this study has really been all about, beat integrity. So Carolina Arbors is located in Police District 1. As you can see, it is shown, and I think you're a beat number 124? 124, yeah. Okay, that's my next slide, see? Almost there. This is an enlarged map of District 1, and this is Police Beat 124, where Carolina Arbors is located.
Can I ask a question? Why is there so much non-contiguous space in District 1?
That's a good question. I should have brought the planning director over here. I wonder that too. There's a lot of incorporation of, and annexing of land, throughout the city, but it leaves what we call donut holes throughout the city, because some communities want to be a part of the city. They go and make an appeal to city government. They do a planning study. They talk to the police department, the fire department to say, what is it going to take for us to be able to incorporate this area in? We give them the data to say we'll need another officer or officer and a half, or whatever the case might be, and then they incorporate that area into the city. So the reason behind it, I can't give you the answer.
What is not the city, is that Durham County then?
Yes.
It's the previous slide from this one.
Let me see the previous slide.
There we go.
Has the most strange looking islands and.
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah, absolutely, because everything that's colored is the city of Durham. So you do see all kinds of little pockets and islands and, and things like that. Now, what's in those spaces, I don't know if it's just land space, and those are communities, which it probably is, and, I just don't know the deep answer, for that, but that is what the case is right now.
Any crime in those areas would be handled by the Durham County Sheriff.
Absolutely. If that address, and when we incorporate these different locations in, all the addresses that are ours are populated into the communication system, in the CAD system. So those addresses aren't in our system, they're in the county system. So if something happens at that house, that call automatically goes to a county person, a sheriff or something like that. Yep. Okay, so in this particular slide, this slide summarizes District 1's recent beat realignment. There is one beat less than it was before. No beat in the district has more than 5,500 calls for service on an average, as was the goal with this whole realignment process. And as you can see, the one beat that has the most geography literally has the less calls for service. I know this is, this might be hard for you to see, but we have these printed copies too, if anybody wants to take one with you to do a little bit more studying. If you get bored and you don't have a show you want to watch at night, just pull out some popcorn and read the crime report. Okay, moving right along. Our budget outlook for this year, the biggest budget issue facing us currently is our staffing. And, I made the ask, and we'll see whether or not we get the officers that we asked for. The study that was done by the IACP basically said that the Durham Police Department needed 72 additional officers. Of course, that's not a number that I would ask the city's council to endorse or support, because it takes time to hire officers. Well, I asked for it and, you don't get it. So what my proposal was a 3-year plan, 25, 25, and 22, and to see whether or not we could get to a place where we had a number of officers where we didn't have to use a lot of overtime funds. We use overtime funds now so we can fill gaps and fill those different beats to make sure that calls for service are answered and crime problems and trends are addressed. The only way we can do that is if we have extra men on the street. But the downfall to that is that if you got officers that are working 12 hours and you want them to work overtime, and the overtime shifts that they were working before were 8-hour shifts. So you got them working 12 and then 8, and sometimes they like it because they like to get paid that way. But it's no good for officer health and wellness. It just isn't. So the idea is to use overtime when we need it for snow events. Unfortunately, for explosions and unusual occurrences that occur in the city from time to time, when we have crime trends and problems where we want to put more officers out here at 2 o'clock in the morning in Carolina Arbors because we got an issue out here. If I don't have extra manpower, then we can't do those kind of things. The only thing we can do is hope that the officer that's assigned out here, if he's not busy, then he can come over here and do some additional director patrol. So the request I said was for 25, 18 of those officers would be in uniform patrol. We also wanted to enhance or expand our community engagement unit, because we've seen a lot of success in reducing crime in Durham by putting officers in hot areas where you have gang activity and shootings and things like that. And if you have those officers in those communities, it provides less opportunity for that type of crime to even occur. But the officers that are working right now in McDougal Terrace are not in police uniforms like you see these gentlemen wearing today and ladies wearing today. They're in a soft uniform because the goal is really to build relationships. And while you're building relationships, then you're deterring crime at the same time. So they do a lot of work with those kids out there. They do after-school programs, they do athletic programs, they work with elderly folks, they do mentoring and tutoring, you name it. But what it has done is their presence has deterred the crime as well and worked on building a relationship. Any questions about our budget request? Yes, sir.
When you visit the new headquarters, it's like a world class. When you go by District 4, it looks like a modern building. But when I drive by District 1, I think of World War II barracks. So I'm wondering, is District 1 ever going to get a new building?
That's a good question. Well, I'll tell you, after they, when my first, I think it was my first week on the job, I went to city council. And they were making the decision about whether or not they were gonna spend the money for that new police headquarters building. I almost got a ticket back to Atlanta. Cause there was so much argument and debate about just the fact that we needed a new building. I'm not saying that it won't happen at some point in time, but I know the city has their priorities and they put, you know, these different, and we don't own that building, we're leasing that building. So at some point, I believe that they will probably look at, you know, a different space for District 1. But your appeal would help. And we're going to continue to work on trying to improve that space too, because it also houses our property unit. That building is sort of cohabitated by another private entity, isn't it? Yeah, and one side of it, there's a private business there, and then there's some additional warehouse space that we may encumber at some point in time too. Thanks for your observation, though. It's on Holloway Street. It's not far from Fayetteville and Holloway. If you're headed north on Fayetteville, you make a right on Holloway. It's only about maybe a half a mile on the left-hand side. At Holloway, and what street is that? Calvin? Yeah. And so, and it's been there for some time now. It is an older building. Any other questions about budget stuff? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about blue benevolence, which is something that's very personal to this particular group and something near and dear to our heart. So fiscal year 2018-19, our operational budget without salaries, major fixed assets were as follows. Our victim witness unit was allocated $3,947. I'm not going to read all these numbers. You can see them in all of the different areas where allocations were made to these specific units. The fiscal 18-19 general fund budget is $64 million, $135,000. Uniform patrol services, $24 million went to uniform patrol services. Support services, $16 million. Investigative services, 13, and these are salaries plus benefits. Most of our budget, the largest portion of that $64 million budget is salaries for the Durham Police Department. A lot of the equipment that we are able to take into our department, we do have a line item that takes care of some equipment, but a lot of our equipment and our flexibility with purchases comes also from in-kind donations and also from our asset forfeiture funds. We have officers that work on task forces, and when drug money is confiscated, that money is distributed to those agencies that work on those task forces. So anytime there's large drug cases that the DEA or the ATF or some of these other federal entities are working along the 85 corridor and other areas where they're transporting drugs, and we make those arrests, and we have officers that are on those teams, the Durham Police Department gets a cut of that money. So sometimes it can be $15,000, sometimes it's $50,000. And, but it's sporadic, it comes and it goes. So of the Community Services Division, $3,657 is budgeted this year, including salaries. Approximately $35,000 is actually to support programs in the Community Services Division. Any questions about our budget? Okay, let's move to the next slide. And I'll talk a little bit about our Blue Benevolence from Carolina Arbors. So, since 2015, Carolina Arbors has supported important community outreach programs with monetary contributions totaling more than $40,000. Give yourself a hand. You know, I've been here at least 3 times to receive checks from this community. And it's an anomaly to receive that amount of money from a community in support of the police department. So our relationship, Carolina Arbors, is one that's truly special, and we do take considerable care in how we allocate the funds and just trusting us with doing what we need to do to support the police department with those funds. So support of Blue Benevolence programs is important because it helps the Durham Police Department stretch our budget dollars, which sometimes we don't have. Go to the next slide there, and I'm going to break down just a little bit. Engagement, intervention, and prevention are essential to Durham Police Department's philosophy of community-oriented policing. Blue Benevolence contributions have supported a variety of Durham Police Department engagement, intervention, and outreach activities. For example, mental health outreach, software purchase of Bull City Fresh Start Survey app for use by our Community Services Division and our Crisis Intervention team. Rain slickers for citizens with mental disabilities. We deal with a myriad of community members with mental disabilities on a day-to-day basis, and having the resources that we need in order to help mitigate those situations are important. Police explorers. Our police explorers are young people who aspire at some time to either be in criminal justice, be a police officer, or work in some capacity supporting public safety. So the facility rental for Explorer Youth events is how we use funds in that program. The vehicle rental fee for trips to the National Guard Armory so that we can further educate those young people in paramilitary types of organizations like ours. Fees for camping events at Okanochee campgrounds. Some of those opportunities where young people would not have had a chance to even experience a weekend with police officers, to mentor them, to sometimes even give them family that they would not have had, and help them to actually envision what their future could look like. Our motor unit, lodging, parking, and per diem. Our motor unit is sought after on a regular basis to participate in Memorial Week in Washington, D.C. And these funds help our officers attend that event and also the ceremonial aspects of Memorial Week. It's a very, very important meeting. How many of you were prior law enforcement? I know there were some in the room. You all know about what the Memorial Week is all about in Washington, D.C. And it's an important week to honor those who died in the line of duty. Our Honor Guard uniforms and other uniform apparel, our Citizens Police Academy, which we're very proud of, embroidered our CPA apparel for Academy students, our Police Athletic League, which serves our young people in the community and a lot of times underserved communities, basketball jerseys and soccer shirts for youth, lining of soccer field prior to games, various sport equipment for youth game events, food and beverage provided for our youth during various game events as well. And with that said, I know we've been here for well over an hour, I believe. That ends my presentation. That's one of my friends. And thank you for your attention. I probably could have said a lot more about what we're doing in the Atlanta Police Department, but that was at a high level. And I hope it helped answer some questions, but I certainly am available to answer any other questions that anybody might have tonight. Yes, sir. I have one right behind you, then you, sir. Yes.
I'd like to know what your thoughts are on how you would characterize your working relationship with the prosecutor's office in terms of being able to prosecute.
Well, you know, we have recently, I met with our DA's office. I thought that was important that I have a sit down, not just with her, but also with her staff and with my staff. So I coordinated a meeting with them early on for them to come over to the police department for us to really talk about the work that we had been doing. And my main concern was the fact that I talked about that robbery task force. That robbery task force wasn't just my officers. The commitment from the previous DA was to have 2 investigators in his shop to work with those officers so that when we got some of the worst of the worst off the street, we could make sure that we either took those guys federally or we made sure that, you know, they were prosecuted. Because robberies in the city of Durham, they aren't these nice, kind interventions. They are violent sometimes, and, you know, we have seen them where they have been fatal. So it was very important that we meet, because we had great success. And when I say great success, at that time, Sergeant Burwell and his team, they put somewhere upwards of about 100 people in jail in 1 year. And our robberies went down considerably. Now, everybody don't have to be, yes. This is just the real world we're talking about, y'all. So, and we do have a misdemeanor diversion program, where we run up on young people who have not committed a crime before. Our officers are mandated to give them an opportunity to go through the court's misdemeanor diversion program so that they can potentially go in a different direction. But the folks that we put in jail, they had 3 or 4 page long rap sheets. That's what they decided to do for a living. And there were a lot of hurt victims in the process, and we're very serious about those prosecutions. So to get back to the answer to your question, right now, I still have confidence in the DA's office because I haven't seen anything different yet. And I'm going to continue to work with the DA's office. And recently, I put all of our homicide cases online. So you can go online to see where any homicide case where a Durham police officer has arrested an individual for homicide. And that person is awaiting adjudication in the DA's office or, you know, in the court system here in Durham County, you can see the status of that particular case. And I think it's just important for us to sort of monitor those kinds of things because we want safe communities. And, but, you know, I play good in the sandbox, and I'm going to continue to work with, you know, our DA's office and hope that, you know, we have a nice, strong relationship and move in a mutual, you know, direction. You know, thank you for that. Yes, sir.
2 questions.
Yes, sir.
First of all, there's a wonderful movie currently playing in the theaters. There's a wonderful movie playing in the theaters called Best of Enemies.
Yeah.
And it's about Durham.
Yeah.
And it's about the integration of schools in Durham. So I'd like to give you the opportunity to talk about race relations in Durham, because some people, even in this community, are a little afraid to go down to downtown Durham, you know, and and I'm wondering if this community can do anything to raise all boats in the community. That's question number 1. And that question number 2 is, I think a lot of the crime, it's like going from box stores to Amazon, you know, it's changing. And so online crime is an emerging threat to us all, whether that be domestic or Russian. And I'm wondering what facilities you've put in place to deal with the online crime.
Thank you. Well, we depend heavily on our federal partners who have more sophisticated investigative tools in order to investigate crimes. The agency that I came from, we had a cyber crimes unit. And we had folks that we sent to school so that they could investigate those crimes in-house. Of course, that was a larger agency, but those are kind of things that stay on my radar for the future of Durham too. Even though we have a good relationship with the FBI and the Secret Service who can help us investigate those types of cyber crimes, credit card fraud, and I'm telling you, it's prevalent. It's so prevalent, it's hard to investigate because it's so sophisticated now, where people can just take your name, your social security number, create all kinds of credit cards and use them, and before you know it, they're gone. They got rid of that particular number, whatever, and the theft is done. It's a done deal. And now folks just, and companies are just writing it all off, you know. Somebody's having to suffer. To talk about your other question about race relations, that's a very good movie. It's a learning experience for everyone to sit in the movie, mainly because of the fact that it happened here in Durham. But what the takeaway for me in that movie was hope. That there is hope no matter what community you live in. There have to be brave enough people to be the change that they want to see. And if we don't all participate and say, you know what, I'm going downtown. There's nothing scary about downtown to me. I guess because I carry a gun, but still, if I didn't. I go downtown and, you know, people are everywhere, you know, and we don't have a lot of problems downtown, do we? People are everywhere, you should see it. It's like a festival on a regular. How many of you go downtown on the weekends? You can't even get a seat down there somewhere. I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. We don't have anything to fear but fear itself. And sometimes what we have to do is we have to snuff out those opportunities by our presence. If we stay away, then bad guys win. There'll be opportunities for them to commit crimes and things like that. So I hope that you have faith in the fact that the Durham Police Department, we're trying to have a little bit more presence in the downtown area, visible presence, walking presence, and stuff like that. That's what these new officers that I hope I get one day will be doing. They'll be doing the other stuff, the visual kind of things that when you go downtown, you see the officer on the corner that's just saying, hey, how you doing? And you just, you know, you feel good about hanging out down there for a while. But if my officers are running from one call to the next, then it leaves a lot of opportunity for people to be doing other kinds of, you know, nefarious stuff. Any other questions anybody have for me? All right, so where's dinner gonna be served? Just kidding, let's get a couple more questions right here. Right here, sir.
This is the fourth bullet taken out of it, or that was out of my house, but the fourth that it has right.
Oh, this is a real bullet?
Real bullet.
Wow. He delivered a bullet to the meeting. This is a first. So this was obviously from some kind of incident that occurred?
Well, my neighbor who had 3 bullets called the
Give back the mic.
So the Durham City Police told my neighbor who had bullets hit his house that it came from the county. It's hard to tell where it came from. Anyway, the county told the resident that it was the city's problem. So 2 police departments deferred on acting. I was having my roof fixed, and the roofer brought that down. So go ahead.
It does look old.
Oh, yeah.
But still, you know,
I can answer that. So you'll find sometimes you'll find rounds. So you realize that this area has been incorporated, but this is a largely rural surrounding area. Hunting is permitted. People are allowed to target shoot in the county. So the rules in the county are much less strict than they are in the city. And so a lot of times people will target you. I live in Wake County, I'm 5 minutes down the road, and I hear gunfire, but it's not gunfire because somebody's shooting at like houses. Unfortunately, it's, you know, sometimes it's hunting, and there are the occasional knuckleheads who, when you fire a gun up in the air, you know what happens? Eventually that bullet will come down and you will find it in a root. If you hear something like that, please call 911. We'll send an officer out. If you're unhappy with, you get an answer that you don't like, please call me, all right? And we'll take care of it. But yeah, you should have just had this turned in, but this is not.
You want your bullet back? Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And thank you, Captain, because we do take those kinds of things seriously. One thing that we don't want to happen is there be misunderstanding about who's supposed to respond. So, and I'm sure if you have officers that are confused, sometimes they are confused. They're just like your children. And sometimes they come out and they may say things that they're not supposed to say, report them to their mama, and she will take care of them. There you go, you can take care of the bullet. But we want to resolve the borderline issues as far as who's supposed to take reports and so on too. So we'll have to get down to the bottom of that. And fortunately, that wasn't somebody obviously that was shooting and ended up on top of the roof some kind of way. And I don't know how long it was there, but you didn't hear any shooting when that bullet was found. You just happened to find it, right? Okay, yeah.
The house is 3 years old.
Okay. Maybe somebody was mad at the previous owner. I'm just kidding. Thank you for that, though. Any other questions anybody has? Yes, sir.
Yeah, that kind of begs the question. The previous sheriff, I think, was around here for 15, 20 years or so we now have a brand new sheriff in town. For the county, how is your working relationship with him? And, you know, is there things in the future that we can avoid some of these gray areas? To work that?
Well, I will say that the new sheriff, Sheriff Burkhead, and I have also met. We actually met before he became the sheriff. He was interested in sitting down and having a talk with me. And we talked about what his aspirations were for the sheriff's department. Since then, we have been on panels together. We've had other meetings together as well, and I believe that our relationship is going to be a strong working relationship. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of gray. We had an incident last week, last Monday, where there was an explosive device detected that was actually delivered to the police headquarters. The Durham Police Department does not have an explosive ordnance team at all, and the Sheriff's Department does. His folks responded very quickly and helped us to resolve that issue. During the explosion in downtown Durham, even though we were the point agency, I had all the support that I needed from the Sheriff's Department in the perimeter, and he was constantly asking me, what do you need? And what I do need, and I did speak to him about it, is that I believe that agencies should train together and not do dress rehearsal on the day of an event. And he and I are talking about actually having tabletop exercises with our agencies so that when we have major events, we can all respond in a unified way and understand who will be in charge at that particular event, and everybody knows what they're doing. And we're not having a tug of war, so that we don't look like Keystone cops out there. So, any other questions? Yes, right here. I'm sorry, you had your hand up earlier. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure if you can answer this, but I'm just wondering what the current law for solicitors is, or religious organizations going door to door, and how we should handle them.
This is our last question.
Okay, I'm not sure. Anybody have anything on that?
There's unfortunately no solicitation laws. You can have signs up, but unfortunately, they have the right to walk over it. Now, you do have the right to post a no trespassing sign and no solicitors on your individual property. However, sometimes that falls in violation to your homeowners association. So, I've been there, folks. But yes, you can't prevent somebody from going down a city street and soliciting, but you can prevent somebody coming on your property. However, check with your homeowner association and see what you can do. And unfortunately, the best thing to do though is to have those ring cameras because I'll tell you that the people who are not there legitimately soliciting will see those cameras and those alarm signs, and they'll just mosey on to the next house that doesn't have it.
And without further ado, I just want to say thank you very much for having us tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. We are eternally grateful for this relationship that we have, your kindness and your support of the Durham Police Department. We will continue to serve in an exceptional way to this community and to others. So thank you very much.